Nerdwriter, Every Frame a Painting, Now You See It, Cinema Tyler, Jesse Tribble, Royal Ocean Film Society, Polyphonic, TED Ed, Lessons from the Screenplay, Wisecrack, and on and on. But did I mention Nerdwriter? Because Nerdwriter is the king. He really is. Point is, there's no denying the massive growth in this YouTube niche called video essays over the last few years. And so today I'd like to do one on just why I think that is. Now, I'm not the first person to explore this, and I'll link some similar videos below, including a TED Talk by Nerdwriter himself, but I do think I have my own take on it, which I hope you'll see is more than just trying to be clever or meta by doing a video essay about video essays. More than anything, I want to express just how much I love video essays, and how they, maybe more than anything, saved YouTube for me. In 2019, using the internet is the number one thing culturally that people have in common. It is the thing that I can assume everyone I meet uses for huge chunks of the day, more than, say, watching movies or TV or reading books, but rather simply being online. As a result of this, I think there's never been more confusion about what it is that constitutes popular culture. What makes something mainstream or not? What is high-quality art today, and what is just content? The line of consumption in mass media has never been more blurry, and this confusion is only magnified by the internet's unique capacity to take things that may seem really unique and niche and suddenly put them on billboards. This, I think, is a natural consequence of content saturation. We spend large amounts of time in an ever-expanding network of things to look at and click on and buy and tweet about, and over time, these things become addicting, and tabs start to pile up, and social media sites start catering content towards us, and our attention spans get shorter and we become more docile, and the whole internet starts to feel like a maze or a hall of mirrors built around time consumption. Adding to this is that content starts to interact with each other. Look, for example, at PewDiePie, a YouTuber whose most popular videos make fun of YouTube videos themselves.
Seems like a very informative and great video that I would love to watch. Also, buy a fidget spinner.
This all creates a sort of strange feedback loop where content begets more content. We can see this maybe most concretely in meme culture, but it also filters outward, and we can see it with cable news, where one quote becomes a headline and then a response to that becomes another headline, and it goes in circles until it starts to feel like the only thing a politician can say is something inane. All of this content saturation inevitably waters down all the content on the internet, and it becomes disillusioning and even impossible at times to discern not only what is worthwhile and what is not, but what is true and what is not. This sort of entertainment obsession is generally aided by its appeal to the lowest common denominator. There are no standards for quality whatsoever for what we see on the internet. This reality was something that author David Foster Wallace spent the better part of his career discussing as something central to American culture.
But a model of life in which I have a right to be entertained all the time seems to me not to be a promising one. It becomes more and more difficult to ask people to read or to look at a piece of art for an hour, or to listen to a piece of music that's complicated and that takes work to understand, because, well, there are a lot of reasons, but particularly now in computer and internet culture, everything is so fast, and the faster things go, the more we feed that part of ourselves, but don't feed the part of ourselves that likes quiet, that can live in quiet, that can live without any kind of stimulation.
Wallace understood this as a trend in capitalism, whereby inevitably, in our impulse towards things that are easy and fun, we willingly sacrifice some of our critical capacities, and we begin to lose the distinction between what is content and what should be considered art. Consider, for example, the way The Simpsons, which was once universally acclaimed for its genius writing, now is essentially considered an empty capitalist vessel that exists only to make money, and has become known essentially as a meme to a whole new generation. But this attitude towards culture isn't just a reality in internet spaces. If the internet is the thing we all have in common, then when we put our phones down and computers away, We take that experience with us, and it becomes a lens through which we perceive the world and the culture in it. We see this in the rapid decline in humanities in nearly every university in the United States over the last 15 years. Most research and liberal arts schools have lost as many as half their humanities majors in that time frame.
It is a nationwide trend, and it's one that worries me a great deal. This is a decline in student engagement with the humanities, particularly in choosing humanities fields for majors.
I don't think it's a coincidence that this coincides with the rise of the internet age, an age which has democratized and watered down culture so overtly that it's created a widespread attitude where we don't see these things as having real value at all.
But a year ago, about 20% of the senior class went into consulting and financial services. And students started saying to me, why are we all going to Wall Street? And I thought that was such a curious question. It was as if someone was chaining them and shipping them, and they had no agency in this.
And the humanities departments that do exist have adjusted in troubling ways, where they tend to over-intellectualize art, breaking it down and filtering it so heavily through political ideology and post-structuralism that art begins to lose a sense of the universal, and studying it doesn't even feel rewarding anymore. People who are inclined towards things like philosophy and literature and film find themselves, even at universities now, as very isolated. All of this coheres, at least in my opinion, into a widespread sense that there's really nothing to do outside of class or work except waste time, that all this content is really just in competition to be the biggest way that you waste your time. And it's so prominent, in my opinion, that it's even socially encouraged that you waste your time on the internet, that you participate in this anti-culture. And I think it's only now, in the wake of this political climate, with a whole generation that has grown up with the internet, with shows like Mr. Robot, with a clear rise in depression rates, with the popularity of thinkers who are pushing back on these changes, that our society is starting to shift a bit in how willingly we will surrender ourselves to technology.
Because I think that with all their knowledge, computers are at the same time stupid.
Which finally gets us back to video essays, which are, at least to me, an attempt by some people to set the internet straight in a way, by participating in the cultural feedback loop with a legitimate celebration and appreciation of culture, with the recognition that a lot of the content we consume isn't purely something empty or greedy funded by a capitalist conspiracy, but rather by genuinely smart and well-meaning artists. They remind us that even in the depths of the internet, we can find things that are really human and worth spending time thinking about, and it doesn't have to be done alone. They allow us to resurrect works that have been forgotten in the public consciousness and go deeper, easier with works we love. They are, in effect, the new home for academics and intellectuals and lovers of culture who feel increasingly displaced or undervalued by universities. But on YouTube, these types of people have found a bigger audience than ever, and videos can be made without rigid academic standards, and rather by drawing on a wealth of information and experience freely. But above all, I think it's because a lot of people are tired of wasting time on the internet. What good video essays do is elevate things that deserve to be elevated. They reveal that there is still content with depth that is worth considering as something more than just entertainment. They make us feel less individualized and alone in our interests. They are the thing that keep me coming to YouTube and the thing that help me maintain some small bit of hope, not only in internet spaces, but for our society as a whole. If you like this video, be sure to like and hit subscribe. This is a new channel, and this is our first video. We're recent college grads and very unemployed, and we are really hoping to use this channel to contribute to YouTube in a really positive way.